This is Doshin the Giant. Doshin the Giant was originally released as a Nintendo 64 disc drive game in Japan, but it found a GameCube release in Europe and Japan later, after the game was rebuilt for the new console. America never got Doshin, and instead got the bizarre Cubivore, which didn't release in Europe. Doshin the Giant tells the tale of an immense being known as Doshin the Giant, who rises from the sea each morning near Baruto Island. Doshin acts as something of a protector/guardian to the island's villagers. The game's softly spoken narrator Sudoro, as well as an unknown woman's voice, guide Doshin and subsequently the player on how they should go about their duties. I'll play the game's intro as it really sets the peculiar tone of the rest of the game.
I'm a witness of history. My bone and flesh perished ages ago. I'm not even sure whether I'm alive or dead. The only thing I can do is to continue to keep watch over this island. The people living on this tropical island have retold a legend for generations. The legend says a big man will appear at sunrise. The big man will appear at the edge of the horizon. I keep on waiting for that dawn when the big man appears. The sun begins its climb into the sky, a morning like so many others. Does the big man appear? Has I waited for so long? He appeared. It's the big man. It's a giant. Very slowly he approaches. His movements seem calm and gentle. Such a gentle yellow giant.
Doshin the Giant is a god game, a genre where the player is given large-scale control over a game world and is tasked with assisting autonomous NPCs. Essentially, Doshin is guided to form villages, care to the villagers' needs, and assist each villager in creating various monuments. The game drops you right in without much explanation, but the narrator gives just enough information to get you going without too much confusion. However, the ultimate goal of the game is not explained very clearly within the game itself. Basically, the ultimate objective of the game is to build all of the 16 possible monuments. To do this, you have to establish a village from an assortment of coloured villager types, based on which monument you want to build. Each monument is chosen based on the colour combination of the villagers present. When the developing village sets up an area for a monument to be built, you need to deliver a special big flower to the village. To get a big flower, 7 trees need to be placed close together. As well as this, only one big flower can be present at a time. The 16th monument can only be built after the previous 15 have been constructed. Not all monuments have to be around at the same time to win, however, and more than likely you'll need to create villages all over the island in order to get every colour combination. Doshin himself can change from his normal love giant form to Jashin, a devilish hate giant at a press of a button. Jashin can shoot fireballs and can jump much higher than Doshin, but the villagers are scared of him. Doshin also grows in size when he gains hearts or skulls. Hearts can be gained by helping villagers.
He grows bigger and bigger.
And skulls are given out as a result of the villagers' hate. Villagers don't appreciate having their friends trampled or having their buildings destroyed. Doshin has the ability to raise or lower the island's terrain at will, as well as pick up and carry objects from trees to villages. As Doshin grows in size, he moves faster and can shape the terrain far more easily, but due to his immense size, he also becomes increasingly clumsy. The whole game has this very relaxing atmosphere. There's really no rush to get things done, as progress is saved after each 30 real minute in-game day. Each new day, the progress of the previous day can be continued on. Doshin himself moves incredibly slowly as well, so the game has a plodding pace to it. It helps that the game is built around these 30-minute sessions, as this is a perfect game to settle into for a short block and just focus on developing a village or two. There's no hurry to expand or complete all the monuments. The only real danger to progress is randomly occurring natural disasters. These disasters may cause fires, or lower the ground into the sea, and just generally wreck villages up. Doshin usually has some clumsy way of defending against these disasters, whether by raising the land around a village to prevent a tsunami, or jumping and headbutting a storm cloud to halt a torrential downpour. I've got some tips and tricks to help you live on Boruto Island. Sink buildings rather than destroy them. Villagers don't blame you for sunken monuments. If villagers are being troublesome about whether they want the ground raised or lowered, it can be better to just create a flat surface for them rather than try to fulfill their supposedly desired height. Do not walk off the edge of the world. You will lose the day's progress and have to start that day over. This might not be as interesting as building a large collection of islands for each monument, but monuments only need to have been built before to count towards completing the monument list. What this means is you can forcibly alter the colour combination of the villages in any town and then sink their monument, which will start that same village off on building a new monument with that new combination. This saves heaps of time as the village is already built up. The big flowers are a pretty poorly explained concept within Doshin. The game tells you early on that only one big flower can exist on the island at a time. However, this excludes the big flowers that spin around the top of the glowing pyramids that signify a monument being built. What this means is that every time a village needs a flower for their monument, you can quickly make one by moving 7 nearby trees close together. The flower should then spawn and quickly be lifted into the air towards the monument, and you can move to a different village and create a flower there too. Through this method, you can have multiple monuments being built at a time. To construct the 16th monument, you need to have built each of the other 15 monuments at some point. As well as this, I'm under the impression that at least one of these monuments has to have been of the hate form, which is caused by a village that doesn't like the giant creating a monument. Every individual monument has a hate form, but I've completed the game without needing every single one, so I think the only prerequisite is that at least one hate monument must have been built. Doshin the Giant is not an especially impressive game in terms of presentation. The visuals don't have the greatest graphical fidelity, especially considering Doshin released for the GameCube, which had some impressive graphical achievements in other games. Terrain textures are quite ugly and there is noticeable pop-in on certain objects at times. However, when you consider that the entire environment is entirely malleable by Doshin's ground shaping powers, the graphical limitations become more understandable, as from my understanding, pre-rendered environments are less intensive on a game than those that aren't. Game's HUD is minimalistic, with only a map and collected hearts and skulls on display. This is all the player needs though, and the map especially covers all the visual information the player will need. The game's visual aesthetic, much like Doshin the Giant as a whole, is a baffling thing. Taken at face value, the game appears quite frankly ugly. You've no doubt noticed the visuals aren't terribly exciting or appealing, and yet somehow they still kinda work when you take the game as a whole and actually experience it. The game is strange, and the visuals support that. This is a game with a sit-down button. It doesn't do anything besides let you sit and take in your unattractive little island world. Many things exist in the game just to populate the island, it seems. Doshin the Giant also has some really peculiar sound design, mostly made up of discordant ambient noise and villager chatter. It all reaches the point of being actually unnerving at times. I'll give you a short example of just what I mean. I don't think calling the sound design harsh is an overstatement, and yet, just like with the visuals, it gives the game this peculiar feel, which honestly works for it. With the way the gameplay is being presented, I don't think there's anything which would be more suitable for the game than this wonderful mess. Doshin the Giant is one of the most unusual games I've ever played. Every aspect of the game just feels weird. There is this long list of things that should make the game completely unenjoyable, from the plodding walk speed, to the poor graphical quality for the GameCube, to the discordant audio experience, to the lack of explanation of vital concepts like the big flowers. But somehow despite this, even perhaps because of it, it's a strangely enjoyable game, despite all its faults and peculiar design decisions, and one which is easy to get sucked into. I can't think of many other games that encourage the relaxed playstyle that Doshin does. Even though the game has a cheerful tone most of the time, there are moments of genuine tension, such as during the natural disasters, as well as what happens after the 16th monument has been built. Not many games end on a tone as bittersweet as Doshin the Giant. As the 16th monument is built, a reference to the biblical Tower of Babel, the sky grows dark and blots out the sun. Throughout the game, Sodoro, the narrator, and even the instruction manual have been warning the player of the dangers of constructing the 16th monument, questioning whether it's worth building it at all. What follows is this final monologue of Sodoro.
Island sinks. I'm embraced by soft and bottomless darkness. In this darkness, I will sleep. My consciousness is getting thinner. In time, I will no longer be able even to spin my words. Is this the meaning of death, or is it the start of reincarnation? This island is called Barudo, and my name is Sodoro. Barudo, Sodoro. This island and me, we are one single entity, unified forever.
It's not exactly what one would call a happy ending to the cheerful, relaxed game that preceded it. Sodoro is the spirit of the island, and now he's found rest. However, all is not over, as Doshin awakens the next morning on a new structure in the form of his fallen self, and sets out to help the little grey men found there to build a new monument, a rocket into space. It's a suitably bizarre and open-ended way to complete the main campaign. I have to commend the creators for managing to combine such jarring aspects into such a weirdly coherent whole. Each aspect of the game, from presentation to gameplay to the narrative, is tonally appropriate, providing a simple yet intriguing little world for players to build up. The game is characterful and homely, and I think in a sense there's beauty in that. It's the player's own space, and they can exist within it as they please. I'm sure the game is not for everyone, but for those who can get invested in Doshin's strange and distinct world, it's a delightful little god game.